All right, we are back, and we're joined by Dakota Meyer. He is the first living U.S. Marine to receive the Medal of Honor in 42 years. That's quite an honor. I'd say accomplishment, because I don't think it was something that you stepped out to do and intended to do. But you did intend to enlist and get involved. How did that happen?
I did. You know, I was walking through my lunchroom one day in high school. I was 17, and just when I knew everything, you know. And I was walking through, and there was a Marine recruiter sitting in the back. He had his dress blues on and his medals, and he was sitting back there. And I went up to him and just started asking a lot of smart aleck questions, which I'd say you could probably tell. And he took it for like 5 or 10 minutes. And then finally he looked at me and he said, I didn't know I'd set myself up, but he said, well, what are you going to do with your, what are you going to do when you get out of high school? So I puffed my chest up and I was like, well, I'm going to go play football somewhere. And he's like, yeah, that's what I do too, because there's no way you'd ever make it as a Marine. You're just wasting my time.
Oh.
And, yeah.
How'd that make you feel?
Well, I was like, wow. So I went back to my classroom. My lunch period was over. I went back to my classroom and I said, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I went back, and I was kind of a bargainer, and I looked at him and I said, if you'll pick your stuff up right now, I'll sign the papers. Expecting him to be like, well, I can't go today, we'll have to go tomorrow, and then I got out of it,
Yeah.
And he said, all right, go get your transcript. He said, you won't make it, but I'll get you a tryout, And so I went and signed the papers. We drove up an hour, came back, and now my father has to sign because I'm 17, and I hadn't told him yet. So we were sitting at the kitchen table, and me and the recruiter, my dad walks in from work, and he said, what have you done now? I said, Dad, I've decided I wanted to go to the Marine Corps. And he said, did you really think about this? You make some hasty decisions. I said, yeah, I thought about it, the hour drive up there and the hour drive back. I'm ready to do this. And
Let me ask you, on the way up, did you drive up with the recruiter?
I did. I rode with him.
Did he talk to you the whole time?
He did.
About
He did. He was giving me some different options, and I said, if I'm going, I want to go fight. And I signed up for infantry, and that's where I went from there.
I see.
They're getting a chance to know Dakota. We've chatted quite a bit, and I'll tell a bit of this story because it'll lead us up to the story that you share with us. But when he was in the service, he was bit by a spider.
I was.
That laid you out and actually put you out of commission for quite some time.
It did. Yeah, I was bit right here on my right hand by a spider in Iraq. We were in a hide. We were operating in Fallujah, Iraq, as the snipers. And I was bit by a spider, and I actually lost movement in my last three fingers for a while, and all motor functions. They did 2 surgeries on me in Fallujah, Iraq, shipped me back to Germany, and then I came home and I had to do rehabilitation and trying to get my hand back.
So then you went back to Afghanistan.
Yeah. And you go back in, which leads us to that fateful day on September 8th, 2009. I know this is a long story to tell, and I've seen you recount this before, but essentially, as you look back on that day, what do you remember?
We were, so I'll set the scene for you. We were set in northeastern Afghanistan, and it was myself, and we lived, myself, 2 other Marines, and a Navy corpsman lived on the Pakistan border with 80 Afghans. And our job was to advise these Afghans on everything from training, mission planning. We did everything with them. They were just like as close to me as the Marines. And we were called down to go run this mission in a place called Ganjgal Valley. And it was a joint effort with the Army and us and other teams. And my team was going to be put in the front of the patrol to go in. We were going to park the vehicles, and they were going to walk into the village. And the village elders that came to us and said, listen, we want to renounce ourselves from the Taliban. We want to start supporting the government, and this is huge. I mean, this is...
So they came to you
Yep.
saying that this is what they wanted to talk to you about, which led for everybody to go into this village.
So we were going to set up a town meeting to go in there and talk to them.
I see, okay.
And, so we were invited in by them. Well, my team goes in. They left me at the vehicles. This is the first time I hadn't been on a patrol with my team, the first time I hadn't ran a mission with my team since I knew
What did they
them.
say to you? Why'd they leave you behind?
I have no idea.
No?
Who knows? But so I was sit back at the vehicles, and my team entered, and as soon as they got in the village, they were under attack, and they were set up. It was there was mountains on 3 sides. And what the enemy had done is they had set on all these mountains. They had the high ground on them, and once they walked in there, it was just like a kill sack. And then what they tried to do is close off the back. And I sat there for a little bit, and I kept requesting to go in, myself and Staff Sergeant Rodriguez Chavez, who was with me. And they kept telling us no, no, no. And finally I heard one of my guys come over the radio, and he requested for an artillery support artillery mission. And they said it's too close to the village, and he said the village is shooting at me. And the Army replied back and said, well, you got to give us another location. And he said, you know, if you don't give me these rounds right now, we're going to die. And the Army replied back, we'll try your best. And at that point, I knew that I had to do something. So I looked at Staff Sergeant Rodriguez Chavez and I said, we got to do something, you know, we got to go. Even though we've got orders and stuff, you know, yeah, we're taught obedience to orders, but we're also taught a brotherhood that's way stronger than that. And we went in the valley, and we kept trying to go in, and we made multiple trips, 5 or 6, I don't know. And as we got in there, it was just, you know, you couldn't imagine the scene of people, and, you know, it was bad. But when I finally got to my guys, they had all been killed. So whenever I got to them, we were evacuating out Afghan soldiers for 6 to 8 hours. And when I finally located my guys, a helicopter spotted them in a trench. And whenever I ran over to them, they had all been killed.
Yeah.
So you ended up taking those men out.
So I ended up carrying them out. We pulled them out, and then we went back to base, and you know, we put them in their final place, and then just the fight goes on. You know, went back and went back to my base about a few days later. Packed up all their belongings and sent them home to their families, and got new guys in there and kept going on.
We're going to find out
so
how
much
you.
more,
I know
yes,
there's so
yeah,
much more.
so
We're
many
going to find out how
questions we
you
have for
honor
you.
them every day of your life, those fallen. We're going to find out
And how it affected you.
And
Yeah.
the call you got from President Obama. A lot more with Dakota when we come back. Don't go away. We are back with Dakota Meyer, and just before we went to the break, he's the first living Marine to receive the Medal of Honor in 42 years, and we were discussing about the events that happened on September 8th, 2009. Something that I know a lot of people cannot relate to. I can't imagine in the moment you were even relating to it. You were doing a job going in, you retrieved 4 fallen soldiers off the battlefield, and that's what sort of, it's not an accomplishment, but it's where you receive this recognition. How do you feel about all of that attention and the medal?
You know, when I was told the president was going to contact me, he, you know, I told him I didn't want it when they come and set me down. It was 2 years after, and they come and set me down, and I said, well, I'm not going to accept it. I don't want it. And
Why did you tell them you didn't want it?
No, you know, because I mean, in my eyes, I feel like I'm getting recognized in the nation for being a failure. I feel like what the nation has done is put the medal around my neck, and this is the way that I have to live my life by that.
Why did you think you were a failure? I mean, you did a very heroic thing by going in there and finding your comrades.
Well, because we live by the words. You either, you know, leave no man behind, and you get them out alive, or you die trying. And if you didn't die trying, well, you didn't try hard enough.
Okay, so, but all right, I respect that. But you went in after the fact, and you went to to bring out your comrades, so no man was left behind. And that in itself was a heroic act.
But I mean, you know, and where you know, the conflict of it is, it's not black and white, you know, and that's why I live my life is black and white. And you know, I went in there to get them out alive, and I didn't get them out alive, so therefore, you know, I failed my guys.
I see.
And you know, I mean, and it's just, you know, it's just the way, it's just part of it. You know, it's you know, you're the only survivor on your team. You know, you don't have the guys who are close to you. You can't sit there and, you know, go talk to them about stories that happened. You know, it's a whole different world to come back and do it, and then try to you know, then get recognized. Not only do you deal with it yourself, but you're in the face of the media with it. You know.
Do you still feel that way today?
Yeah, I mean, you know, I don't wear the medal because I'm not a hero. You know, I'm not. The heroes are the men and women who are over there serving right now, and their families and their spouses who sacrifice so much for our freedom, and those are the heroes.
Sorry, make me cry. I'm sorry.
What are the names of the 4?
You know, Lieutenant Johnson, Gunny Kennefick, Gunny Johnson, and Doc Layton.
How do you keep their memory with you?
No, so I wear these bracelets around my wrists, and I've never took them off since I got them, since I had them made, and it has their names on them. I have 2 of them on this one and 2 on this one. I just don't take these bracelets off, and it's because every day we have struggles. We all have struggles in our life, and if I feel like I don't have a way to push on for myself, if I'm feeling sorry for myself, then what I do is I got 4 reasons on my wrist to push on because those guys never got a chance to. And that's the way I live.
But Dakota, you went through a very low period too, where you were driving, and
yeah.
you keep a what's that gun called?
It's a Glock.
A Glock in your car, and you actually took it out. And
yeah,
you want to explain what you did?
I got to a point to where it was like a downward spiral. I came back, nobody could relate to me. I didn't want to talk to the families, because I look at the families, and how do I look at a family and say, yeah, why am I here and your son's not? It's hard to talk about it. But so I was going down and I was drinking probably a bottle to a bottle and a half of Crown a day. Just living my life that way. I didn't care about anything, and I felt like I was becoming a burden on everybody else. And I just pulled my car over one day, and I was like, you know what, I'm done. I'm like, I'm done. And I always keep a gun with my vehicle. And I always keep my guns loaded. All of them are always loaded, so I don't have to worry about it. And I pulled the gun out, stuck it to my head, squeezed the trigger, and it went click. And somebody had unloaded my gun the day before because I had shot it the day before. And I sat there and I looked at myself, or I thought of it, and I was like, if you really want to do it, well, cock it back and do it. And if you don't ever think about it again. Don't ever think about it. If you're not going to do it today, don't ever think about it, and go out and make the most of your life and stop feeling sorry for yourself. So, and I said, if I put my vehicle in drive, I'm done. I'll never think about it. I'll never do it again, and I'll live my life to the fullest. And
you put that in your book.
I did.
You wrote it. Why?
Because people, like a lot of times, where I've been, on the national media and stuff, people look at me and they think, well, he lives a perfect life. He does this or he does that, and everything's good for him. I want people to understand that, I'm a real person. That we all live through struggles behind the camera. We all live through struggles in our lives every single day. And I wanted to make sure that I was true to, just as I was true with the battle, I wanted to be true with my life afterwards.
Did you do this all on your own, or did you seek some help? Did you seek any psychiatric help?
No.
Are you getting any now?
No, I don't. I don't. When they sent me back from Afghanistan, I was sent to a PTSD rehab center for precautionary measures.
Right.
I was in there, and it gave me knowledge on it, but I've never sought help.
How are you feeling now, today? How are you getting on with your life?
It's great. I want to go out and make a difference. It's not about me. It's bigger than me, and it's just like the president told me when we were sitting in the Rose Garden. It's about what I can do for other people and what I can do to make a difference and the impact. And we live in the greatest country on the face of the earth. No matter what anybody says, we live in America. We are Americans. And we got to stop worrying about who's a Democrat, who's a Republican. We got to stop segregating each other and understand we got to be, instead of being individuals, we need to be team players, and that's what made America great. And I hope to go across America and light a fire that lets everybody know that we still live in the greatest country on the face of the earth.
I just want you to share the story. I know you've done it and I've heard it, but President Obama calls you.
Yeah.
It's a great story.
No, so I was out on I got told on a Friday that, hey, President Obama will be calling you on Monday at, he'll be calling you, I think it was 12:40, 11:40 or 12:40. And I was like, okay. They're like, listen, but we want you to be on a landline, and we want to do an hour prior, and we're going to do comm checks every 15 minutes up to the point he calls. I said, well, that's not happening. And they're like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, he'll have to call me on my cell phone. I got to work.
You call me on my lunch hour.
Yeah, and that's what I told him. I said, I get a 30-minute lunch, so what I'll do is I'll get there 10 minutes early. I'll be able to talk to him for 20 minutes, and I can go back to work. And they're like, really? So I'm sitting at this gas station in Indiana waiting for the president to call, and he's late. So his aide calls me, and it rolls around, and the aide calls me, and she's like, look, the president got tied up with something. I said, I'm sorry. I got to go back to work. I'll try to answer my phone. If I don't get it, I'm sorry. So,
Excuse me.
So the president, so finally he calls me as I'm getting ready to step on a machine to go back to work. And he said, Dakota? I said, yeah. He goes, this is Barack Obama. I go, hey, what's going on? So he told me I'd be receiving the medal, and then his speechwriter calls me, and I said, to let the president know that I'll be in town all week long. If he wants to grab a drink, just call me. You know, expecting him to say no.
Right.
And you know, the president called me the night before I got the medal, and I came over to the White House, and we had a drink in the Rose
You have a
Garden.
couple beers?
Yeah, we had a beer in the Rose
All
Garden.
right.